Okay, Boker Tov. So we are on Masechet Beitzah, Daftet Amud Alef. We're on to the new Mishnah, second Mishnah of the Perek and of the Masechet. As mentioned yesterday, the following Mishnayot throughout this Perek are going to continue to deal with machlokot that we have, disagreements between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. The common theme in the first Mishnah was that all three machlokot there were michumrei Beit Hillel v'kulei Beit Shammai. Now we're back to normal, as it were. Beit Shammai is machmer, and Beit Hillel is mekel. But these are to do with Yom Tov. Different ideas to do with Yom Tov. And the first one, it's not really so apparent from the Mishnah itself what exactly is the problem, what is the prohibition over here. But let's see. The Gemara will discuss and give us a few options. The Mishnah says like this: Beit Shammai omrim en molechin et hasulam mishovach leshovach. So what we're dealing over here is with a shovach, which is, I believe, a dovecote in English, which is these places where you have all these birds. Now, on Yom Tov, the case is a person's going to climb up, pick out a bird, and we'll deal with muktzah and hazmana in that a little bit later. But a person's going to take the bird and shecht it and have it for his simchat Yom Tov. Right? We've just been discussing shechita, and maybe that's the connection while we get to this Mishnah now. But that is perfectly acceptable. The question is about moving the ladder. So Beit Shammai omrim ein molichin et hasulam mishuvach l'shuvach. So if you have a ladder, one of these dovecotes where you've got the birds, you can't move it to another one. Says Beit Shammai. Aval mateo mechalon lechalon, but you can move it from one window to another. In other words, within this place, there's different areas where you have the birds, and you can tilt the ladder from one side to the other, but you can't move it from one area to another completely. Beit Hillel matirin, and Beit Hillel are going to allow that. So at first glance, there doesn't seem to be any sort of any problem with moving a ladder around on Yom Tov. So we're going to have to see exactly what's the difficulty. The Gemara talks about, and the Rishonim talk about, two different types of ladders. There's an ordinary ladder which a person might use, and there is a ladder which is specifically used in these shovachim to go and get the birds. See, Rashi over here, Rashi on the Mishnah says, "En molachin et hasulam." He says, "Kasal kadatach sulama miyuchad lekach." Right. So he says the hava mina. You would think that we're dealing with a ladder which is specifically designated for this purpose. V'nikar shel shovach, and you can see, therefore, you can tell that it's of the shovach. It might be that according to the conclusion, we stick with that it is, there's not necessarily an indication that we're not dealing with a ladder that is specifically for this, and that is why there are those, I think it's the Marasham who erases the words kasal kedatach from the Girsa of Rashi. But in any case, Rashi continues. He says, Talmud Beit Shammai mefarish b'Gemara da'asri. The reason why Beit Shammai says it's asur, we're going to see in the Gemara, right? Because it's really not so clear. What's the problem? You've not transgressed any melacha. And he says, V'afal pishu bali tol gozalot v'simchat Yom Tov. There's no issue of muktzah or anything either. You've got the gozalot you're taking. It's for simchat Yom Tov. Okay. So then the next Rashi he says, Mechalon lechalon be'oto shovach atzmo. That's what Beit Shammai allows. In that shovach, sheken derech shovach liot bo mechitzot arbei. So you have different walls in it, different divisions. Ken lekol zug v'zug, v'chalon lekol ken v'ken. So different nests, different groups of birds in different areas. So within the shovach, again, these are not the illustration of the shovach is probably not familiar to most of us, but that's what he says. There's different areas within inside it. So Beit Shammai says you can tilt the ladder from one area to the other, but to move it completely from one shovach to another, that would be a problem. Says Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel says that's okay. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami, machloket birshut harabim. Okay, so now we start to understand. Says Rav Chanan bar Ami, this is the first version, the first suggestion, that the machloket is only when we're dealing with the reshut, it's in the reshut harabim. This shovach is in the reshut harabim, and therefore everybody's going to see you. Everybody's going to see what you're doing. Carrying is not going to be a problem because we're dealing with Yom Tov. But so machlok b'reshut harabim, the Beit Shammai savri haroel omer latiach kago tzarich, uBeit Hillel Beit Shammai savri haroel omer latiach kago tzarich, uBeit Hillel savri shavcho mochiach alav. Okay, so what's the machloket in the Reshut Rabim? Reshut Rabim where it's outdoors and people can see him. So there's a question here. It's going to be of marit ayin, meaning carrying the ladder itself in and of itself. There's no issue. It's intrinsically that's not a problem. But Beit Shammai are concerned. Beit Shammai say, people are going to see you walking around and carrying a ladder on Yom Tov. What on earth are you carrying around a ladder on Yom Tov for? You must be that you're carrying around the ladder because you want to climb up onto your roof to plaster the roof. And that's going to be a problem. That's going to be building. It's going to be whatever it is. By the way, I just have to mention, in terms of building, so actually we won't see in Masechet Beitzah because it's in Masechet Shabbat, but there is a discussion about building on Yom Tov. We've spoken many times about Masechet Ochel Nefesh. So one of the things the Gemara Shabbat talks about different malachot and different derivatives of making food. One of them is megaben. Megaben is making cheese. If you imagine, white cheese, when it's, I don't know exactly how it's made, but when you have the blocks of cheese and you put them together, that's called megaben, and that is a derivative of building. So Tosfot says we're going to learn actually very soon, the next coming dapim, that there's a principle of melachot on Yom Tov, principle it's called mitoch. Meaning mitoch she'otra l'tzorach ochel nefesh, she'otra she'nami shlo l'tzorach ochel nefesh. We've mentioned it a few times that the melachot that are allowed on Yom Tov are those melachot relating to ochel nefesh, relating to the preparation of food. And we say that once there is a melacha that is intrinsically connected to food preparation, we're going to allow it also when it's not in the time of food preparation. So megaben is part of the melacha of building, and that is the preparation of food, and that is permitted on Yom Tov. So Tosfot has an amazing chidush. Tosfot in Shabbat says, since you're allowed to perform melacha for ochel nefesh, and therefore you can perform building, you can perform megaben for the sake of ochel nefesh, hutra nami shelo l'tzorach ochel nefesh. You would therefore be allowed to perform the melacha on a doraita level of building on Yom Tov. And it comes out that according to Tosfot, I mention this now because we're talking about Natiach Gago and we're worried about Marit Ayin, that people might think he's coming to build. According to Tosfot, there is no issue of the oraita of the malacha of building on Yom Tov. That is mutar. Tosfot says it's still asur mid Rabbanan. He says it's going to be asur because of uvdin dechol. That's interesting. So, but if in the first instance the oraita it's already allowed, so Tosfot I don't think he says anything about that here. Maybe a different Tosfot, maybe because this is only the opinion of Beit Shammai, and we're not worried about it. But this actually, by the way, this actually comes up halacha l'maaseh. How does it come up halacha l'maaseh? We're not building on Yom Tov. That I assure you, that is mainstream halacha. But the question comes up. This question actually came up for me this year, but not the solution. That if somebody has a sukkah, and let's say part of the sukkah falls down or whatever it is, you can't put the sukkah back up on Yom Tov because that's the malacha of building. But if we say that it's only an Isur Rabbanan, as Tosfot does, so then to ask a non-Jew to come and fix your sukkah on Yom Tov, that would be a shvut to shvut, bimkom mitzvah, and therefore it would be allowed. So that is the actual practical nafkamina that comes out of this opinion of Tosfot relating to building. But back to Inyaneinu. So Beit Shammai says they're going to see him, they're going to think he's carrying this ladder, he's going up to the roof to fix it. Says Rashi, haro'eh, Shehu molicho, you see the person carrying the ladder. Omer la tiach gago tzarich. You're going to say he's going to fix up his roof. V'harei oseh melacha b'yom tov. He's doing melacha on Yom Tov. Lehatiach, says Rashi, shehu tachin gagotein betit. They would put cement on the top of their roofs. Lefi shelo hayu meshupa'in. Their roofs, for whatever reason, were not slanted. They were flat. And asuin kamin tikrat aliyah umishtamshim b'hen. Because they would use them. They would use the roof would be another area where you would whatever it would be, and that's why again remember the mitzvah of asita ma'kel legagecha. You would have to have a fence around the roof so that it would not be dangerous. People wouldn't fall off. Chas v'chalila. And therefore, lefichach tachinotan, they would plaster them up. They put on cement, etc. Umeshapin atiach letzadak tzalim shazuvu meimav. They would do it in such a way that it would be somehow slanting on the sides, and that it would the waters would fall off. Okay, but this was a common practice, and therefore we're concerned for Marit Ayin, says Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel says no. Beit Hillel says we're not worried. Third line of the Gemara. Beit Hillel says says Beit Hillel, what are you talking about? The guy's carrying a ladder. It's not an ordinary ladder. It's a ladder which is used specifically in these dovecotes, right? And it's everybody knows. You see that kind of ladder. People don't use that ladder to go up onto the roof. They use it to go and get their birds for Simchat Yom Tov. Says Rashi, Shovcho mochiach alav, Shovcho shel sulam mochiach. It's very clear. I don't know exactly what this ladder looks like, but it's apparently maybe the Koran Gemara's got some pictures, but it says that. But it's clear that it looks like different to an ordinary ladder, and therefore we're not worried. So that's what the Gemara says. So in Rishut Rabim, this is the machloket that Beit Shammai are concerned that people are going to think that you're going up to climb onto the roof and to build things and fix things, etc. But Hillel say no. We're not concerned at all. We can see what it is. Continues the Gemara. So that's their machloket in Rishut Rabim. Aval b'Rishut Yachid divrei hakol mutar. When it comes to if this shavach is in Rishut Yachid, so this is not a place where other people are going to see you, well then it's going to be mutar according to everybody. The chiddush that even Beit Shammai, because Beit Hillel already said it's mutar. Now hang on a second. Says the Gemara Eini. Is this really true? Can this be possible? And just before that, Rashi says mutar shara ein adam ra'eh, because nobody can see it. So you're making a distinction about whether the act is going to be permitted or forbidden based on whether somebody else can see you. This is very troubling. Eini v'ha'amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav kol makom she'asru chachamim mipnei marit ha'ayin afilu b'chadrei chadarim asur. Hang on a second. Didn't Rav Yehuda say in the name of Rav that kol makom she'asru chachamim mipnei marit ayin, wherever we find that there is an isur because of marit ayin essentially means, we're dealing with here, how it looks. So you're not actually doing anything wrong. There's nothing isur with the action, but it looks like it is, and it might be confused. The truth is that the poskim talk about different categories. Talk about marit ayin and talk about chashad, which are very, very similar, but there may be some differences between them. Maybe next time we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But the point is, Rav Yehuda Marav says, wherever something is forbidden because of marit ayin, so once Chachamim said it's asur b'nei marit ayin, afilu b'chadrei chadarim asur, then even in chadrei chadarim, even when no one can see you, it's going to be forbidden. Once there's an action that carries this difficulty, that it looks like it might be that it might cause people to suspect you, that it looks like you're doing something wrong. So Chachamim said it's asur. We don't differentiate whether other people can see or not. It's asur. It's now asur. It's asur whether it's in private. It's asur whether it's in public. Okay. Why is it? Why did Chachamim make it like that? Maybe because of lo plug. Maybe just it might be difficult to distinguish between the cases. But that is either way, it's going to be forbidden. So answers that, so again, that's a challenge because Gemara said this is a challenge on Beit Shammai. Really, it's a challenge on Rav Chanan bar Ami. Rav Chanan bar Ami said our Mishnah with the machloket is talking about only in Rishut Rabim, but in Rishut Yachid they'd all agree. We always try and mitzamtzem the machlokot, right? We always try and reduce the machloket to the smallest possible case because we know Chachamim agree on many other cases. But nonetheless, the difficulty is if you're going to reduce it, you're essentially saying that there's marit ayin which is forbidden in Rishut Rabim, but it's permitted in Rishut Yachid. And don't we have a principle that says marit ayin is forbidden everywhere? So says the Gemara, no, this is actually a machloket Tanaim, this principle. Tanaihi, Titania, Shotchan b'chama, aval lo keneged ha'am. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Osrin. Okay, so what is the case? This is a machloket Tanaim that appears in Masechet Shabbat. A person is walking through, is walking on Shabbat, and it starts raining, and they get caught in a storm, like it has been over here in the last few days, Baruch Hashem, and their clothes get soaking wet. Now, there's a prohibition. You can't, as we all know, you can't do laundry on Shabbat. And so therefore, Chachamim said, if you, what happens if you have these wet clothes? You're going to hang them all up on the laundry line outside in order to dry in the sun. So people are going to see that. They're going to say, oh, you've been doing your laundry on Shabbat. Right? Maybe it wasn't raining. Maybe you went through a river, or whatever it is. But the point is the clothes got wet. You can't hang them up in the sun, because we're worried people are going to marit ayin. People are going to think that you've done it because of that you've been washing your clothes. So That's what the Beitzah says. Shotchan b'chama avalo keneged ha'am. So there's one opinion that says you can actually hang them up in the sun to dry avalo keneged ha'am, not where people are going to see, not where people are going to see. But Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Osrin, they say it's forbidden. Right? Everybody agrees that you can't do it where people will see. They say even in Chadrei Chadarim. So essentially, this question of the Gemara that says everything that's forbidden for Marit Ayin is even forbidden in Chadrei Chadarim, that's according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. However, according to the Tanakama there, we do make that distinction, and therefore that makes sense. That is the resolution of Rav Chanan Bar Ami according to the first version. Okay. Yeah. Second case is let's see. Rashi over there. Rashi says, but he says shotchan b'chama mishen ashu kelav b'derech b'meg shamim. Person was walking and their clothes got soaked in rainwater. Shotchan b'chama ve'nogvin ma'alehem. You put them up in the sun, and they will dry by themselves. By the way, also a very practical question. Sometimes it's raining. People want to hang up their clothes. You want to put them on the radiator. Put them next to the radiator in order to dry. So on a weekday, that wouldn't be a problem. On Shabbat, that's going to be an issue because the water, you're heating up the water, placing it directly on the radiator or close. So there might be an issue of bishul with that. Says Rashi, we don't want people to say that he washed them, laundered his clothes on Shabbat. So based on that opinion that says you can put them out in the sun, but not Keneged ha'am, we see from there that Marit Ayin is allowed in a place that is private, in a place that is hidden, where no one else is going to see. By the way, this issue of Marit Ayin also comes up very, very many places, and very, very common discussion in Halakha. One of the places where it comes up, it's brought a lot, and is in the world of kashrut as well. So there are many tshuvas going back a number of years when they started coming out with the almond milk and different milk, soy milk maybe, substitutes. Now, I mean, nowadays you have, whatever you want, but and everybody knows that milk might be real milk, might be almond milk, soy milk, etc. It's not unheard of, but initially it was quite strange to have this idea of paruv milk. So therefore, there are lots of tshuvot saying already in days of the Ramah, they talk about chalav shkedim. But mashkichim in hotels, for example, if you have a hotel that serves a meaty meal, and then you serve coffee and tea afterwards, and they have put out almond milk. So initially they would say you have to keep the box there, or you have to have a sign so that that indicates to everybody that the milk is parut because of marit ayin. We can discuss how that can change when it's something which is a universal practice and everybody knows. We may not be concerned about it either, but that's the case of marit ayin here as well. So now, that is the first version of Rav Chanan Bar Ami, who says the Machlokes in Reshut Rabim, not Reshut Yachid. Says the Gemara, Ika da Amri, we have a different version. Version number 2. Amar Rav Chanan Bar Ami, Machloket Bereshut Yachid. Okay, so it's exactly the opposite. He says their Machlok is going to be in Reshut Yachid, in the private domain, people can't see. The Beit Shammai idlu de Rav Yehuda Malav, u Beit Hillel leidlu de Rav Yehuda Malav. In other words, still, explanation number 2 is that it's still to do with Marit Ayin, but it's the opposite way. In the first case, in the first version, we said that Beit Shammai were concerned about Marit Ayin in Reshut Rabim, but nobody was concerned about Marit Ayin in Reshut Yachid. According to this, we say in Reshut Rabim, everybody's going to say that it's Asur. Even Beit Hillel will say you're not allowed to move it in Reshut Rabim because we're worried about Marit Ayin. People will see. But what happens in Reshut Yachid? So Beit Shammai still says it's Asur. Why? Because Beit Shammai holds of what Rav Yehuda Marav said. That Rav Yehuda Marav come later, obviously. But that was that wherever we say something is Asur because of Marit Ayin, we say it's going to be Asur in Chadrei Chadarim as well. So since it's Asur in Reshut Rabim, it's going to be Asur also in Reshut Yachid. But Beit Hillel don't hold that. Beit Hillel hold like the Tanakama who said Shotchan b'chama v'lo keneged ha'am, and therefore that would be acceptable. So it's completely opposite understanding of what their machloket is and where their machloket is. Now the problem with that says the Gemara, is leima Rav de Amar kebeit Shammai. Okay, we know that we paskin, generally speaking, we paskin halacha like Beit Hillel and not like Beit Shammai. So for a later Tana or Mora to come along and mechadesh halacha and to say a principle, but to say he's only speaking halacha according to Beit Shammai, that seems very strange. So it seem to make sense. And essentially, that's what we're saying. Rav Yehuda Marav said, Torah halacha, he said, Kol makom shasruch chamim mipnei marit ha'ayin, afilu b'chadrei chadrei mas. Rav Yehuda Marav said, wherever we say something is going to be forbidden because of marit ha'ayin, it's going to be forbidden for marit ha'ayin in the Rishut HaRabim, and it's also forbidden in the Rishut HaYachid. Now we're explaining the Mishnah as follows: that this action is forbidden in the Rishut HaRabim, and in the Rishut HaYachid, it's only forbidden according to Beit Shammai, but not according to Beit Hillel. In other words, this principle, which Rav Yehuda Marav said, is only works according to Beit Shammai, not according to Beit Hillel. So you're saying, you're teaching me a principle that doesn't actually follow in the halakha, that nobody paskins that way. That is unusual, and that is strange, and that is very, very difficult. And therefore, says the Gemara, we have to explain slightly differently. There can't be, there's something missing here. So he says like this. So again, let's just do it from top, from the Ikad Amri. Ikad Amri, Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami, Machloket b'Rishut HaYachid. The Machloket is in Rishut HaYachid, the Beit Shammai, Itlu the Rav Yehuda Marav. Beit Shammai holds by this principle that anything that's asur for marit ayin will be forbidden in Rishut HaYachid as well. Ubeit Hillel leitlu Rav Yehuda Marav. And Beit Hillel do not say that, and therefore they would permit it. Aval b'Rishut HaRabim divrei kol asur. According to in Rishut HaRabim, according to everybody, it's going to be forbidden. So leima Rav de Amar kebeit Shammai. So you're now saying that Rav essentially is saying a principle, and that's according to everybody, but it's actually according to nobody because it's following Beit Shammai. And therefore, we say what we said before as well. We say Tanahi. We have to understand. I mean, the conclusion that comes out, something we know, but based on the Lishna Kama and the Lishna Batra of Rav Chanan bar Ami, is that this principle of regarding marit ayin in Chadrei Chadarim is actually a machloket Tanaim. It's not something that everybody agrees with. Therefore, Beit Shammai, one set of Tanaim follows Beit Shammai, and one set of Tanaim follows Beit Hillel, and that's okay. Tanaihi, the Tanya Shotchan b'chama, avalo keneged ha'am, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon osrin. So again, that's what we saw already, but we saw there is the Tanakama who says yes. Shotchan b'chama v'lo keneged ha'am. You can hang them out to dry so long as nobody can see, and he makes that distinction. And Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon osrin, they do not make that distinction, and that would be following Beit Shammai as well over here. Let's just see Rashi. Rashi says, Leim alav de'amar kebeit Shammai. He says, Lalav Chanan kapalish. This is how we argue against, how we reject that which Rav Chanan said. Ukila Beit Hillel b'Rishut HaRabim asri. Meaning the difficulty is, because Rav Chanan, in this version, he's established Beit Hillel as saying that it's forbidden in Rishut HaRabim. Over Rishut HaYachid Sharun, only in Rishut HaYachid they allowed it. So Rav Chanan, Rav Damar Kol Makom Shaslu. Therefore, according to your understanding, when Rav Chanan Barav came and said his Rav Yehuda Marav said his understanding of the marit ayin also forbidden in Chadrei Chadarim, the mark of Beit Shammai. He's saying it like Beit Shammai, B'tmiyah. Havadai lo shabik Beit Hillel v'avid kebeit Shammai. Certainly, he did not just ignore Beit Hillel and paskin like Beit Shammai. At this stage, we're saying that according to Beit Shammai, you have to say even in Rishut HaRabim it's going to be mutar mishum d'shavchom machiach halav. The Rishut HaRabim asur u'Rishut HaYachid shali lo avam alav la yishmata. Then he would not have been able to. Rav would not have been able to say that. And then the conclusion we answered was actually Tanaihi. We said no, it's a machloket Tanaim. What Rav was saying. Klamar. Amalach Rav Chanan would answer you back, says Rashi. Vadai lav savad Beit Hillel afilu b'Rishut HaRabim shali. Upalig alai. He said he could say that actually no, Beit Hillel will say that it's allowed even Rishut Rabim, and they hold differently to me. Anna the Amriki, Tana, I was saying like the other Tana. Damal, Shotchan B'chama, Shotchan B'chama, that says you could do it. In other words, what comes out of this is that Rav and Rav, I mean, when Rav said, Kol Davar that's Asur because of Marit Ayin is Asur even in Chadrei Chadarim, he still holds like Be'ila. So he can't explain the Mishnah in the way that Rav Hanan has now explained the Mishnah according to Beit Hillel. So there's really three different understandings of the Mishnah that come out of it. But the point is, Rav Hanan himself can say, no, I can understand this because I don't hold like Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. I hold, and I would think that Beit Hillel holds as well, by that Tana who says that we distinguish between Rishut Rabim and Rishut Yachid in terms of Marit Ayin. Okay, and so that took us to the bottom of the Amud. I'd come for today. Happy Tu B'Shvat, everybody. The rest of it, Shabbat Shalom, and have
Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
B'Shvat Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Sameach.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.